one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you everybody for joining our meeting this evening. We'll get started with, do we want to start first with our comments? Or is there are there students on that need to go? That's really my question. No. Okay. Okay. Then, may I ask now to start the meeting with our board comments?
I don't have any comments.
Oh, okay. The only thing I wanted to share with the board and the community is Frank and I participated in the New York State or the Capitol Conference that happened this week. It was informative. Everyone seems to be in the same position that we're in when it comes to COVID and keeping the students safe and getting funding for our school district and keeping the funding that we have in the state budget and all those good things. We just finished a few minutes ago a meeting with Senator Skoufis about the same topic. There were many local school districts on this call that we had. It was set up by the people that organized the Capitol Conference. And from there, we are going to be meeting with Colin Schmidt and also have our individual meetings with Colin and our other elected officials that we need to get help with our, I'm going to say our funding overall, not just with our federal government funding, but our state funding as well. So, and there were some pretty strong thoughts on the call right before, or feelings, should I say, on the call right before us, but I really don't know. I don't think at this point we have answers. So many of the districts are well aware of what Denise is going to talk about, that our state plan now, or our state, the first pass of the state budget, there's a lot of changes that are in there, and the budget doesn't look as good as, the budget is not as good as it looks. So let me just put it to you that way. So we have work to do. So from there, are there any other board comments, or I'll turn it over to Dr. Sheboy? Okay, Dr. Sheboy, it's on you.
So just a couple things. As Ann said, we did attend the Capitol Conference. She hit all those nails, and I know Denise will have some things to say. We also talked, we learned a little bit about some of the plans to improve broadband. I thought that was very valuable, and hopefully we'll really see something come out of that, not just for our kids, but the kids all over the state. Today, I was fortunate enough to attend a webinar on chronic absenteeism that looks at chronic absenteeism as an equity issue, and I'll make sure I share out the PowerPoint from that with the admin team. James Skoufis, Senator Skoufis, was also at our Chiefs meeting last week, as was State Senator Martucci, and they heard loud and clear some of the superintendent's concerns regarding different rules for different counties as far as isolating students, and heard very loud and clear our desire to get our kids back in school, and that we can't do that with some of the stifling regulations that are out there. We have begun our planning for our various recruitment fairs, and are looking at making sure that we're hitting some of the diverse educator recruitment fairs throughout the state, which is in alignment with our diversity and equity plan. And that's my report for now, at least.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Theodore?
So we're kicking off the second marking period. Classes are underway, and we're moving forward with our instructional program for the year. it's hard to believe we're moving into a second semester, almost at the 1 year mark of March 13th. So, but continuing to do that, we're taking a close look at attendance in all of our settings, remote learning, the hybrid learning, and what that looks like. So we're digging deep into that and taking a close look at that, and continue to work on what's going on with Ed Law 2D and making sure that we're up to speed with all the requirements for Ed Law 2D and looking at the best way to phase in meeting those new regulations. That's it.
Thank you very much. Ms. Sedera?
Hi, everybody. So I got the final piece today to finish the tax cap, and I did submit it to the Office of the State Controller's Office. So I'll just give you a quick, because my first budget presentation is on March 4th, but the tax cap is going to be 1.22%. And just so everybody knows, the CPI was 1.23%. So I'll dig into more of that when we have the first presentation, but I just want to give you some numbers quick. I'm still working on the revenue budget and the expenditure budget. As Dr. Sheboy said, I've had a couple meetings, and I have another one now that just came out scheduled for next Tuesday to go over the executive budget proposal. But the governor is definitely not comparing apples to apples. It's kind of scary. For example, if anybody really looked at it, if you look this year, there's a COVID-19 supplemental stimulus of $973,000. That's a one-time shot. So I can't budget for that because it's going to go away next year. So things are a little bit scary. But on the other side, once we get our capital project done and we have our aid flowing, it's going to be hard, but it's not going to be, we may be actually okay. And I'm just trying to finalize that. Not saying that it's going to be perfect. We might, it may be a little bit tight in a couple spots, but I'm just worried with what the governor's doing. And the other thing is that you saw that he has the STAR program as state aid. That is not state aid. It's his way of trying to get rid of it and blaming it on the district. So the taxpayers get upset with us when the STAR payments go away. So that's a whole nother concern. So I don't want people to think that that's another aid source. It is not state aid at all. So I do have another meeting. I just signed up for it about a half hour ago on next Tuesday. So we're going to dig in a little bit deeper so I can see what my colleagues across the state are doing. But I know like one district, Pine Bush, they're actually gonna book that their stimulus money. I don't think we should. It's not prudent because it's a one-time infusion, and then we're going to be back to square zero come the 22-23 school year. So we'll have a very interesting first budget meeting on the 4th. And at that point, that is it, because it's just trying to dissect everything still. So if anybody does have questions at any time, feel free to call me or email me.
Thank you, Denise.
You're
Okay, teachers, I'm sorry, principals and directors, who wants to go first? I was thinking who's going to go first.
I'd be happy to go first. Good evening. And like Andrea said, I can't believe it's the beginning of the second semester. That's incredible. So I'm going to read some of the highlights for the week. The first is Heather Milano, Dawn Lent, Debbie and I hosted an 8th grade parent night orientation for all incoming parents. Ms. Milano will begin meeting with 8th grade families next week in order to plan their academic program for next year. The mentoring committee met with a consultant from the New York State Mentoring Program. He will be offering some free training to the O'Neill High School faculty next Wednesday, February 10th. Eventually, this organization will help the school develop a full mentoring program for struggling students. Second quarter grades will be published and mailed on Tuesday, February 9th. The scheduling process began today with video presentations being offered during PE classes to highlight electives and other course offerings. Teachers will meet with students during the week of February 8th in order to place them in classes next year and to select possible electives. The Drama Club will be holding a virtual gala this Saturday, February 6th, featuring our student performances. It will take place at 7 p.m. on the JIO YouTube channel. And the last is the BSA, the Black Student Association, is planning various activities to celebrate Black History Month. And they're looking to do interactive activities with members of the community to make sure that the celebration includes local voices and experiences. And that's it for the high school.
Robin, can I just ask a question? The link for the gala, will that be on the website?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Who would like to go next? Okay, well, you, Mike.
My hand was quicker. It was a little faster. HFIS, we're celebrating Black History Month each and every day during our morning announcements. The theme or the title is called This Day in Black History. I want to apologize because my kids have the TV on. So if that's a loud background noise, I really am sorry about that. So additionally, the staff is encouraged not only to join in the celebration of Black History Month, but to showcase it to the rest of the building, either via Flipgrid or during morning announcements. So teachers have that option as well. And Mrs. Maldonado actually reached out to all of our students today, and they're going to be putting together a presentation for Black History Month as well. So we have a lot of great things going on. Definitely the virtual platform, which we might not have ever tapped into if we didn't have this pandemic. So you got to kind of look at some positives. We're really able to do a lot of things with technology because of it. Yes, sweetie. I don't know. I'm hold on though. My daughter, my 2-year-old, sorry. So she's asking a question about the TV show that's going on. I apologize. HFIS kicked off iReady testing for the second diagnostic. So we're excited about that. It was delayed because of the snow. We're hoping to have that finished by next Friday. And then we will finally have some data to compare for the school year. So we're excited to jump into that data. And Mrs. Maldonado and I are just continuing to plug away with observations. And it's great to get into classrooms. It looks different, but the student motivation is there, and the teachers are always positive and excited. So there's more, but it's really loud in here, and I'm so sorry. I thought Frozen would be a good idea. I apologize.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, thank you. Rachel?
Mike, just a helpful tip. This is the part of the day where I allow the tablets. So both of mine are currently on their tablet, and that is keeping them absolutely quiet because at the start of the meeting, Carter was playing Army and he was chasing his pretend people around the area I'm in right now. So tablets are the way to go. So at FMES, we are also deep into our Black History Month celebration, and what we've chosen to do this year, which is a little bit different than in years past, is we are going to be profiling a new individual or event or cultural contribution to Black history each and every day. And we're trying to look for people and individuals who are not as well known and highlighting those. So far this month, we've learned about Marley Diaz, who is 16 at this point, but when she was 10 years old, she noticed there were tons of books that didn't have characters that looked like her. So she started a movement called the 1,000 Black Girl Book Movement. And she asked for donations of books that had female Black protagonists that look like her. And she received over 12,000 books that she's since donated to different schools. So we're trying to find people like that and events like that our kids may not know about, so they can sort of see themselves in the activists that exist in Black history. So those are very exciting. So those profiles are going up on Dojo every day. And then the classroom teachers are also sharing them during community circle every morning so that the kids could see them too. So the conversation continues at home and at school. We also have parent-teacher conferences coming up. HFIS and FMES are doing those conferences very similar to the fall at the same time, so that it's easier for families to be able to make the time to visit their teachers across both buildings. So those are on March 3rd in the afternoon and the evening, and March 10th in the afternoon afternoon only. So the PTC Fast setup for appointments and schedulers will be going out very soon. So in both buildings, families will receive that. I want to give a thank you and a shout out to our buildings and grounds and custodial crew. They were able to clear the mounds and mounds and mounds of snow so that not only could our faculty and our families and park safely, but they also cleared a path so our kids could still go outside and play at recess time. So I'm very, very thankful to them. And I know that it wasn't easy and it was very tiring and exhausting and laboring work, but I very, 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 very much appreciate it. And our kids were super excited to be able to go outside and play and just get some fresh air. And then very similar to HFIS, also our iReady diagnostic window is open. So we're going to be using that information to guide our instruction, but also to be able to provide more specific learning and targeted interventions and instruction for our students independently.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you for that great report, everybody. I'm going to move on now to liaison and committee reports. The policy committee, please.
Yeah, we're still waiting to get the next draft back. As soon as we get it, I'll convene.
Okay, thank you. The Wellness, Health, and Safety Committee. Have
We
you
have-
met yet?
No, we have a meeting scheduled for this Tuesday at 3:30.
Thank you very much. The Audit Committee, we're on hold right now. There's nothing, thank God, going on right now. The Facilities Committee, I know we have a meeting coming up.
Yep, the meeting is scheduled for February 10th. Primarily, we're really looking at one real item for that, other than just some updates on the project. And Ms. Adelstein gave a shout out to. I'll have to pause for my facilities. Just she gave a shout out to her buildings and grounds, their custodial workers, and the grounds people. But we'd be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to the entire crew over that snowstorm Sunday into Tuesday. They worked tirelessly to make sure that we could get back, and just wanted to make sure I said that. But so the two real topics that we have that we're going to talk about at the Facilities Committee is what to do to meet our elementary space needs, and we've asked BCA, who is our architecture firm, to give us some pros and cons to doing a project at the Highland Falls Elementary School. Mike, you can relax. Doing something to renovate the Fort Montgomery Elementary School, or perhaps even doing something that's a little bit more out of the box. They're going to bring some information to that Facilities Committee meeting, and we'll have a real good, rich conversation, which of course has to lead us to a discussion. The board will recall that last year around this time, I think it was maybe a month from now, right before we closed down, the board had authorized for referendum a capital reserve so that we could meet some of those needs, for not only for elementary needs, but all district needs, with an eye on a potential capital project in the future. We do need to revisit that conversation in the near term. We will be having some debt service fall off again in a couple years, as Denise can speak to at some point when we have those conversations with the board. But I just want to put that on everybody's radar, that we kind of need to have that conversation at this table, as far as what we can, what we should, and what we ultimately will do to meet our facilities needs going forward. Remember that a capital reserve is not a spending plan, it's a savings plan for long-term goals. And we would not have been able to do the work that we've done at O'Neill without it, and with the confluence of events where we had debt coming off and had that savings account. And it is something that we definitely will need to discuss moving forward. So that's where Facilities Committee sits. Again, our meeting is February 10th at 6 p.m. Right, Marissa? Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
February 10th at 6, right? 6
Yes.
p.m.
Yes, Ned. Yep.
And
Thank
the Audit Committee has been sent the invites for that already?
Facilities Committee, I'm not sure if they've been sent out yet. I'll Marissa, they've been sent out?
Facility was, but not the audit. Did you say audit
Facility.
as well?
I
Yes,
did, I made a
facilities was
mistake.
sent the
Facility.
invitations.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, our next committee is the Diversity and Equity Committee. Go ahead, Faith.
I don't have anything to speak
have
on
a
about that. I
meeting
know that the committee's been really focused on the efforts for February being Black History Month. And
Yeah.
as Rachel and Michael and Robin all spoke about the efforts that they're doing individually at each school. I was just looking at my calendar. I don't have written down when the next date is, but luckily Nicole sends out those reminders and it always
Yeah.
reminds me when they are. So
Yeah, it's February 10th. We just got it. It's February 10th.
okay.
So we're good.
So yeah.
Yeah, and we are just finalizing the plan to gussy it up and make it pretty so the board can adopt that plan. And also, Nicole and some of the DEC will be taking part in some of our recruitment efforts. We want to make sure that we include that teacher leadership on that process.
Thank you. And the OXPA, would you like to give an update, Faith, or?
Yeah, so
Thank
we
you.
had an OXPA meeting last night. I'll leave off all of the NISBA part of it because you really spoke to it. It was all about the Capitol Conference. That was the bulk of the meeting last night. Some of the key points that I did want to make from the OXPA piece of it is our next meeting is on March the 3rd, which I'll be attending. There was some discussion that Karen Meyer brought forward in regards to sort of question marks about board elections this year. How many signatures are going to be required based on the volume of voters from last year, whether it's going to be 25 signatures or more, if there are going to be any allowances related to the still being in a virtual environment, how to get those signatures. There's not a lot of guidance around that yet, more questions than there is guidance. As of right now, it appears that there'll be an in-person voting process. So the thought is that there would be the need to gather signatures as well. So we talked about that. They will have a prospective board members training virtually on Saturday, March the 30th, and also on Tuesday, March the 23rd. We had a lot of conversation. We sort of do a wellness check-in with all of the districts that are in attendance. There was a lot of folks on the call last night. There was a tremendous amount of talk about the social emotional health of students. And of course, that tied into the discussion in regards to athletics. So there was a lot of very passionate conversation about that took place at the meeting. But the large majority of the rest of it had to do with the Capitol Conference and focusing on our need for funding. So.
Thank you very much. The next is the athletic liaison, and I think we'll hold off on that until we get to the presentation on athletics. Federal government funding, our upcoming conferences are all virtual, and we're signed up and ready to go. We're just waiting for, I think they're all confirmed at this point, correct? Denise and Frank? Yes.
Yes, in March, yep.
Yep, so we're confirmed for those. And they're going to be interesting because there's going to be a lot of discussions about funding. Same thing, just like I spoke about with the state funding advocacy, we'll be going forward with our group meeting with our representative, as well as individual meetings that Frank will be setting up for us to attend. The next one is the local government liaison. Jimmy, do you have anything or?
No, just to thank the community support with the snow removal. I know both the village and the town and the school, it was a lot of snow and, 25 plus inches or more. It's tough when you don't necessarily have too many places to put the snow. So appreciate the community's patience, and I think the DPWs all have a pretty good handle on everything now to, get the roads open. And I think there was a lot of blacktop seen today. So in the last 2 days, so we appreciate the community support on that.
Thank you. Next would be the tax cert liaison.
No update at this time.
Thank you.
Everything's status quo. You're
Status quo. I like status quo. West Point Community Council. We have not had a meeting yet, but I'm sure once things settle down, with the weather and everything else, we'll be meeting on that. Community engagement report, Dr. Sheboy.
Yeah, again, yeah, I know that the principals talk about the efforts in their buildings and send those things out to the board, but just a couple little things. The Community Coalition will resume our meetings next month. We did take a hiatus due to COVID, and hopefully we'll get back to the work of just making sure that our community is safer from drugs and things such as that. And we are targeting a Narcan training for mid to end of April. So as soon as I get more details from ADAC, I'll send that out to the board in case anybody on the board would like to be part of that. So
thank you. Thank you. So the next thing on the agenda is the presentation, should I say, that Dr. Sheboy is going to share with us on the higher risk winter sports participation. And as the community members that are on the call know, and as well as the board members, we had a decision to make, or a resolution to come up with, in a very, very, very short period of time, within a number of days, in order to be able to put something into place if the decision is made to put something into place as it pertains to our high-risk winter sports. So we did ask the community to submit questions to us. How I would like to handle this, community members that are on the call, please feel free to continue to send questions in. Dr. Theodore will continue to look, check the emails for the questions as they come in and share them with us. I will read the questions and the person that submitted them and the answers after Dr. Sheboy does his presentation. And this way, Dr. Theodore can keep up with the questions as they come in. That all being said, Dr. Sheboy, I'd like to turn it over to you. And at the end, when we're done with this, and after Dr. Sheboy's done and the questions are answered, I will be taking a roll call and asking the board members if they have any questions or any comments that they would like to make before the vote is taken. So go ahead, Dr. Sheboy.
thank you. If it pleases the board, I'll just share my presentation, and I will begin by saying something I've said to a lot of people. I've made lots of recommendations to the Board of Education, and I would say that the overwhelming majority, in fact, I'd say all of them, I have been 100% confident. Can everybody see that? Just thumbs up. Okay, groovy, thank you. I've been as near 100% confident as I ever have been. And I would say that this one is one that I'm not 100% confident in, but I do believe that we have, we've proven that we can put together safety plans for COVID. We did it to open our schools. So I'm going to begin with the end in mind, as the great author Jim Collins wrote in Good to Great. And I'll begin with that. I would also be remiss if I did not thank everybody who has had a role in looking at our return to play protocols, even prior to the governor's passing of responsibility on to local health departments, and then the ultimate passing of those responsibilities on to local school districts and actually school boards to authorize this. And that certainly, I'd be remiss if I didn't call out specifically Ms. Debbie Crow, our athletic director, teacher, and coach, as well as Debbie Brand and her team as the administrative leadership in there. And there's been a lot of people who I didn't name who've played a lot of roles, but I just want to make sure I acknowledge that. So, okay, so just a little timeline back up for us. Prior to the 21st of January of this year, higher risk sports were prohibited in New York State by Governor Cuomo. And on the 22nd, the governor indicated in a press conference that higher risk sports could commence, provided that the local health department approved such things, and sent that basically to the local health departments. That was late on a Friday, as typical news cycle that we've grown accustomed to. I apologize for my cynicism on that piece, but that is what we've lived with. On the 25th, which is a subsequent Monday, SUPS met just to say, hey, now we need guidance from the Orange County Department of Health. We need some direction, and I appreciate the caution that Dr. Gellman puts into every bit of advice that she gives, and we received that the following Friday at 6:30 p.m. So that was last Friday. We received guidance from the Department of Health. Obviously, we had a snow day on Monday and Tuesday, and today is Thursday. So from the fall of 2020 to the present, our team, again, all of our coaches, our wonderful athletic director, Debbie Crow, they examined, in addition to Orange County Athletic Association, as well as Section 9, protocols that will enable a quote-unquote safe return to higher risk sports. We'll come back to that concept of safe in a little bit. And then tonight is the fourth, and the board will consider the recommendation of the superintendent, which is also in a line with the athletic director and high school principal regarding winter sports, winter higher risk sports. So let's just talk about what we're talking about. High risk or higher risk includes least ability to allow for physical distancing. Students, by the nature of the activity, typically cannot be that 6 feet apart. And in addition, typically involves the least ability to avoid the sharing of equipment and to clean and disinfect between uses, such as a ball that gets dribbled or gets bumped if we're talking about volleyball, or handed off or something like that. For higher risk sports, New York State Public High School Athletic Association, New York State Department of Health, the governor have all defined the following as higher risk sports: boys basketball, girls basketball, competitive cheer, ice hockey, and wrestling. Full disclosure, we do not have ice hockey and wrestling, but I wanted to make sure I included them in case anybody said, well, what about ice hockey and wrestling? For fall, that would include football and volleyball, and for spring, that would include boys lacrosse. And since I can't see if anybody has a question, I would ask the board, if during the presentation, please just let me know if you have a question. So the Orange County Department of Health requirements that they put out last Friday at approximately 6:30 p.m. included really 4 things. One being board approval, which then has to be transmitted to the Orange County Department of Health. Second, medical clearance for student athletes. We know that students have to get physicals, but in addition, we would want medical clearance from a doctor in the event that any student athlete has previously been diagnosed with COVID-19. Informed consent for all. That basically acknowledges that playing higher risk sports presents a risk. And when I say all, that is parents informed consent for their student athletes informed consent, officials, and coaches. And then lastly, signed code of conduct for all involved. And for students, that specifies that they will not engage in activities that put them in a higher risk outside of school, such as social gatherings and things such as that. So that's what Orange County Department of Health required for a school to take up this consideration. Other counties and the CDC, as well as New York State Municipal Insurance Reciprocal, we have NYSER. New York Municipal is the insurance company for municipalities. They have actually recommended a few more in regards to best practices to promote the safe return to play to higher risk sports. Again, informed consent, medical clearance of all COVID positive student athletes, in addition to just the regular physical that is required, approval by a governing body, school board, code of conduct, enforcement of all regulations and requirements. Seems pretty logical. That is all embedded in the code of conduct, but recommends as a best practice COVID testing and a pause to the team for 10 days in the event of any COVID positive exposure. Our proposed practices basically take that a little bit further even. in that we, again, are requiring informed consent by all, medical clearance for any student athlete who is tested positive, approval by the governing body, the Board of Education, code of conduct, in-person signature of code of conduct and informed consent. We want to make sure, not that we don't trust people, but we want to ensure that our parents are fully aware and that they are the ones who are consenting to their students and their student athletes' participation, enforcement of all regulations and requirements, and then COVID testing and a COVID positive pause for 10 days in the event of a COVID positive test. Is it 100% safe? No, it is not. Nothing we've been doing since March is 100% safe. As part of our reopening plan, we have implemented risk mitigation measures throughout our school, and we are confident that they reflect best practices. In fact, we have said numerous times on these meetings, numerous times on our reopening plan, numerous times on our briefings to the board, that we believe our schools, by their own nature, are safer than the community at large. And when we did our testing at the Highland Falls Intermediate School, I believe that the data bore that out, that we had a positivity rate in the community at the time in the high 7s, low 8s. We came off yellow very quickly after that, but at the time of testing, that's where it was. And that our positivity rate within our schools was significantly lower. Everything that we have done here through September to today has been greater than the minimum requirement that we have, that has been placed before us. And we will continue to go above and beyond if the board approves this recommendation. Why take the risk? That's a question that superintendents are being asked, over and over everywhere. Throughout the past months, we have been weighing risks and benefits in all of our decision making. We know that our students have been through an immense and challenging year, not just school year, but year. While athletics is not required of our schools, they do provide immense opportunities for our students. And in addition, they're a source of motivation for many of our kids. And that is both high achieving students as well as low achieving students. We believe that our team, our coaches, our AD, our administrators have put together a plan that will minimize risks. Will it eliminate them? Absolutely not. But we believe that it will minimize them. And we have taken the requirements of the OCDOH and have expanded them to put our plan together. So the best practice calls for testing, and it calls for testing based on the following. The optional would be a community positivity rate less than 3%, recommended between 3 and 5%, and highly recommended of 5% or greater. And we are going to test. So what about this testing protocol? Well, we built a wonderful relationship with Horizon Family Medical when we planned our testing protocols for all of our buildings and implemented it, I'd like to say flawlessly. They praised us for everything that we had done because it ran very smoothly. We had all of our consent ahead of time, and we put forms on our website and sent out their links, and there was very little backlog for any of that. Families, once again, would complete their information and registration forms online prior to the testing of their children. Testing would be a Binax Now rapid antigen test, and any positives, as we do with any testing protocol, would be sent to the isolation room to await pickup by a family member, and then testing or contact tracing as required would occur. So then just some FAQs, because people want to know these things. Who would do the testing? Testing would be done by staff at Horizon Family Medical. They would do it at James O'Neill High School and would be conducted at the end of the school day between the hours of 2:30 and 3:30. Who pays for the testing? Horizon will bill insurance for the testing. In the event that somebody does not have insurance, they would eat that cost. Families are not expected to pay for the testing. So Can the school require testing? Well, the school cannot require testing for attendance in school, but the school absolutely can require testing for students to participate in athletics or extracurricular activities should it choose to do so. And we, again, will be, because of the increased risk, we would be requiring testing for higher risk student athletes. How often would you be testing? Well, right now our plan would be to test students every day. We have the ability to do it. We have a commitment by Horizon that they will work with us to do it, and that is our plan. What if I do not want, and I wrote this as if I was a parent, what if I do not want my student to be tested? Your student could not participate in a higher risk sport then. Your student could participate in a lower risk sport, but they could not participate in a higher risk sport. Question you might get asked is, what if I want my child to be tested by their own healthcare provider? They absolutely could do that, but they would need to be tested every day, and the results would have to be delivered to the school every day, because that is our plan. When I say every day, I do mean Monday through Friday. Blunt question here that I wrote, but I'm not going to keep anything from the board in regards to this. Will testing increase the likelihood of a disruption to instruction? Yes. Yes, it will. We were very fortunate in our testing at the Highland Falls Intermediate School that we did not, as a result of our testing, see a disruption to our instructional program. We are all aware that there are individuals, adults, children, walking around right now who are asymptomatic positives. And for us to presume that over the course of the winter season, which would go presumably from 5, it's about 25 days, from 5 to 28 February, that giving 1,500 tests would result in 0 positives. I would never gamble on that. If I was a gambler, I would say that the likelihood is we will have some positives. And to the extent that those positives then require contact tracing or require isolation, could potentially lead to disruption in instruction. And I did answer the question already about, can I take my child to be tested elsewhere? Yes, you can. However, we absolutely would need your child to be tested every day, and we would need those results every day. In general, students who are not in, and this is not about testing, this is just about our plan in general. And Coach Crow, if I miss anything, please jump in. Students who are not in school on a given day, for example, it's an opposite cohort day or a virtual academy, they're a virtual academy only student, they would need their own transportation to school, not only for practice and contests, but also for testing. They would have to be here between that 2:30 and 3:30 timeline. We are proposing varsity only. The reason we're not proposing modified is that modified would begin, presumably, if the board approves this, it could begin as early as tomorrow if we had all of our forms ready for those students. You need, Coach Crow, 7 days of practice or 6 days of practice before a competition?
6 days of practice.
6 days. That would bring us to the midwinter recess. Those students then would not participate in athletics until after that midwinter recess. We considered the pros and cons of that and determined that our goal would be to recommend varsity only. Goal would also be to carry larger varsity teams with a max of 18 student athletes per team. Again, we're talking winter sports. That's a little bit large for a boys or a girls basketball, but that would accommodate transportation. That would include the varsity head coach, the JV coach who would work with the younger players in that developmental role during practice, but would also travel with the team. And so 2 coaches, bus driver, 18 students. That keeps us under the 22 maximum for our transportation. We would require masks to be worn both for practice and play for all of our high-risk sports. Again, we're talking winter right now, so for boys and girls basketball and for cheer. My understanding is Section 9 is not permitting competitive cheer, but our cheer team would cheer at our home games, and the student athletes would still have to wear masks. All of our athletes would follow our protocols and guidelines, regardless of whether we're playing at home or playing away. Typically, the home team's rules are the ones that schools have to follow. So if a school had lesser restrictive rules than we had, then in theory we could adopt those. But we were adamant when we started to talk about this that our teams will follow our rules regardless of where we will play. Section 9 does not allow spectators, so there would be no spectators at our competitions. And we do already, and this has been for our moderate and low risk, a daily COVID screening for our student athletes, in addition to their periodic screening that their families do online. We have a temperature check, and our new trainer, Jay, has been incredible about working with Coach Crow and all the coaches with the temperature checks for our students and making sure that the COVID checklists are done daily. At this time, just ask the board if the board has any questions about anything I just presented.
I have a question. I'm curious if there was any consideration or discussion about the potential of having the athletes that are going to participate in sports do virtual learning through their season.
Actually, we did discuss that, Faith, and we know that some of our student athletes who have motivation issues as far as their virtual instruction, they're struggling now. And while there is, we could not require that of anybody, our goal is actually to get our kids who are struggling academically back more as opposed to less. So Debbie and I, or Coach Crow, Ms. Brand, and I discussed this at length, and we felt that it wasn't a good message for us. We want our kids back in school more, not less. And Debbie Crow, if you want to give any more on that, I mean.
Well, no, you said it very well. We have students that do very well at home. We have other students that just can't. And I think that they need to be in school, and we're going to do our best to try to get them the help that they need academically. And I think that if this opportunity arises for them to be able to play, I think hopefully it'll help them academically, and that should be our goal as well.
Okay. I'm just asking because it was something that was talked about quite a bit at the OXPA meeting last night, where the districts weren't requiring it, but it was something that, because I know you get locked into that you're either going to be hybrid or you're going to be virtual, and you kind of get locked into your decision for the quarter. So I was just curious if there was any flexibility around that. If a student athlete decided, I want to participate, but I would prefer to be virtual while I participate, is that an option for a student?
Oh, yes, it's an option.
Yeah, and I would say that if a child's family had already elected in person and they switched for that reason, I imagine that on a case-by-case basis, because again, we have some of our students and some of our student athletes who currently are struggling. They are currently struggling. We need them in the buildings. I'd like them 5 days a week, not 4 even. I'd like them 4, not 2. And our goal ultimately to get to that level. I've tasked the principals with putting together a plan to get our kids back 4 days a week, as many of them as possible. And they're probably like, oh, he reminded them of that. So, but that's something that we've been looking at. And, I know that the theory behind that is to create the NBA type bubble, right? Where, but kids are still going to mingle outside. And they're safer in our schools, if you ask me, than they are outside. So,
yeah. And if I may, Dr. Sheba, I'd like to make a comment more than a question. I've certainly asked you plenty of questions about this. And I've heard, we heard the discussion actually came up on the meeting that we just had with with Senator Skoufis from a pretty passionate school board president in not in our community, but very close, about getting our kids back to school should be the number one priority. And they were quite upset with the county and the state for not giving the support that was needed to the districts and not giving the districts enough time to make the decisions that had to be made in order to basically be able to do, to a certain extent, both things: bring our kids back safely and then give us time to put the necessary protocols in place. So after much soul searching and many nights of lost sleep, I do need to share with the board and the community my feeling on this. And our district has done an amazing job in a very short period of time, as Dr. Sheboy mentioned, putting this plan together. And I'm really impressed by it. And I thank you for all your hard work that you have done. But I'm still extremely concerned, not about the safety of our athletes, our high-risk school sports athletes for the winter season in our district. As a matter of fact, I feel very good about that. I think that we've gone above and beyond to keep our student athletes safe. I am not convinced yet that all the districts that we will be visiting and that will be coming to our school are able to do everything that we're doing. And once you go to a different school and once you bring an outside school into our district, we're opening ourselves up for contamination. And I just need to I feel very strongly about that. And you know, Dr. Sheboy said this is the first time he's brought something to the board that he's not feeling 100%. I won't say he's not feeling 100% confident, because he should. This is a great plan, but that I don't think he's going to have, full support of every board member. I just want to explain why while I'm probably going to vote the way that I'm going to vote. And more than anything in the world, I want to see our student athletes back on the courts and in the fields and everywhere else. But I just don't think we're there yet as a community. When I say a community, I want to say all our surrounding communities that are participating with us. I just don't think, and I do know tonight, and boards are not happy about this being put on them at all. I know tonight Newburgh said no, and they said no for the simple fact that they still have a couple of, I think, are they in yellow zones still or orange zones?
Yes, they're still yellow.
And it'd be very hard for them to put this and all these protocols in place. They're rushing and busting their necks to put their kids back in school. So I feel for them. And I know that it's hard for bigger districts to do everything we're going to be doing, but I'm still extremely concerned, not only not for the safety of our athletes, but for the safety of our community. These kids are going to go home to their families, and also to a lot of the other people that work in our district. So I thank you all. I respect you all for what you've come up with, but that's just my opinion on this. So do any other board members have questions or comments?
Are we commenting now?
I had one other.
Are we commenting on a motion if it's made? Or are we commenting now?
I thought, Aaron, if it was okay with the board, but tell me if it isn't, I'd like to read all the questions and answers that came in from the community before, but I wanted to let the board ask any questions or comments that they had now. But we can certainly come back to the board, whatever you guys prefer.
That's fine with me.
That's fine with you? Okay. And Faith?
Yeah, I did just have another question. Can you speak at all about the issue of spectators and or videoing? How will that work?
Yeah, that's on several of the questions that came through from the community. So if you want to touch on that now, Dr. Sheboy and Mrs. Crow, that would be great.
Yeah, so I'll let Debbie correct me because she is better versed in a lot of these things, but Section 9 is not allowing spectators currently. We have been investigating a system that would allow us to simulcast our athletic events through
NFHS.
And thank you, Debbie. NFHS, National Federation High School, and so that the district would buy the subscription for that, so that we could cybercast, I guess is the best way to say it, our home events. We wouldn't be able to do that for away contests, just because an individual family would have to have their own subscription. But knowing that we have disparity of resources and disparity of need within the community, our goal was to meet our home spectator needs by the district. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As far as the away games, Mrs. Crow, would they be videoed for Huddle?
I video every game, home and away.
Okay. But we would have, because usually you have a manager for that. We would have the ability to do that.
Yes, and they'll be uploaded on Huddle. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
After the game is over?
It depends if it's home. I can't upload from our school, but I upload when I get home that night.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear to everybody.
Is there a possible way to upload that to our website for people to watch later on, even if it's not live? Is that possible?
That I don't know, Aaron. I know that any parent can put their email in to my account, and they can watch their children's games at all times, whenever they choose to. It's free.
Okay, thank you.
I'm very thankful to my PTSC. I want to give them a little plug because they help pay for it along with the coaches. So.
Yes, thank you. And I'll be reading that in one of the questions. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Is it okay if I go on now to the questions from the community? And then we can come back to the board? Is everyone okay with that? I'll take that as a yes. Okay. So the first question, and please, I apologize if I do not pronounce the name correctly. So I apologize if that happens. The first question was from Andrea Masick. Hello, can you please clarify which sports qualify as high risk for the purpose of the BOE discussion? I know there was confusion about this designation, even at the state level. So while I know Dr. Sheboy already answered a lot of these questions, I do want to read the questions and make sure that we answer them. So for fall, it's football and volleyball. For winter, it's basketball, competitive cheer, ice hockey, and wrestling, which we don't have. And spring, it's boys lacrosse.
Can I just add that I apologize, but game day cheer, and I apologize, Dr. Sheboy, I didn't catch that on your PowerPoint today. Game day cheer is different from competitive cheer, correct? That's in the fall.
That's in the fall, but is that high risk?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Thank
I
you
didn't
very
see that on the
much.
NISFA website, but thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No. The next question is from Michelle Moynihan. I would like to know the status of girls varsity soccer playing this year as my daughter is a senior. If not, is there some plan for the girls to somehow celebrate or acknowledge being seniors on the soccer team, as soccer was a major and important part of my daughter's life at James I. O'Neill? This would be extremely important to her. Currently, soccer is not considered a high-risk sport. So right now we're planning to have a fall 2 season, which begins on March 1st for girls and boys soccer, cross country, and girls tennis, all of which are not high-risk sports. And then we'll have to revisit within a very short period of time. I would say within the next 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, if volleyball, football, and cheerleading are going to be approved, we'll have those sports as well. Megan Walsh asked, and we do know this was just answered in the presentation, but I'm sure there's other people that are interested in this. If there's a consideration for modified basketball, while COVID is certainly concerning, there are many precautions that can be taken to lessen the risks: masks, parent volunteer to live stream or record for all, hand sanitizer on each bench break, and possibly to still do it safely. It may not be feasible to compete with other schools in the traditional sense, but even getting together for practice scrimmage, perhaps even a few with the West Point team, could be a highlight for these kids in a very difficult year when many are struggling with emotional health as well. Even if it's a short season, the health department and the county executive seem to be on board. I hope you will consider following their lead. As Dr. Sheboy explained, due to the short nature of the season, the recommendation does not include modified basketball for boys or girls. It's varsity only. And I think Dr. Sheboy gave our reasons for that and pretty much defined why that's it. The next question is from Kristen Manning, and as a decision to start up sports, what will be the time period for the different sports? My daughter plays volleyball and her son is on the crew team. Will there be periodic testing for sports, and will the students be just filling out questionnaires if they do? So we do know, Mrs. Manning, that Dr. Sheboy talked about the protocols that'll be in place. Mrs. Crow, can you just touch on the dates for fall to winter and spring?
Yes. Well, winter started for all of Section 9, January 19th. High-risk sports were not approved. Then they got approved, as Dr. Sheboy shared with you, and we tentatively can start if it gets approved. The fall 2 season begins on March 1st. We will not be changing any dates at this particular time. So your fall sports, I think Mrs. Lawless read it. Boys and girls soccer, cross country, girls tennis. Those are the only low risk sports. And then you have game day cheer, volleyball, and football. Your spring sports start April 19th. And again, that would be anything that would be low to moderate risk. Baseball, softball, track, boys tennis, crew, and girls lacrosse. Boys lacrosse is a high-risk sport at this particular time and would have to be voted on. I'm sure some of you already know that they canceled the state championships for spring. So their season could go a little bit longer. And again, it also will depend on whether or not we have New York State Regents exams. So Section 9, well, actually the state will look at the lengthening of the spring season.
Okay, thank you for that update. The next one is from Esther Young. Can the JIO crew team hold practices and perhaps even races if they are being held this year? All can be conducted outdoors with cancellations for inclement weather. This is a no contact sport and masks can be worn throughout. Thank you. When their practices start will be up to the coach, Mrs. Wetzel, but the season itself starts on April 19th. And crew is a non-high-risk sport. Am I correct?
Yes.
It's not a high-risk sport, so we plan to go forward with crew as of now. And Mrs. Wetzel, Coach Wetzel will be the one who decides when practices start. The next is from Chris Dyeroff. He saw in today's announcements that football was starting up. When is volleyball starting? Since it's the same season as football, thank you for any updates. Off-season workouts will have begun in a number of different sports. The volleyball coach put in an announcement for any girls interested in playing volleyball to email her, and she will contact interested athletes once more information is given by the district. And then I believe Chris put in another one. But I believe we answered this, but I just want to make sure. Chris Dyeroff said, hello, since there are no spectators allowed, can you please live stream these events so we can watch our kids? Thank you. And I believe that we might not be able to live stream, but we will be able to use Huddle. I just want to make sure I'm giving the right answer on that one. Am I?
Definitely be able to use the Huddle. And
Okay.
our goal is to, again, use that NFHS system that the district will basically invest in so that we can live stream once we get it set up.
Okay, thank you. Brian Larkin asked, does the approval or not of winter high-risk sports also stand for fall 2 and spring high-risk sports, or will those seasons be addressed at a later date? And as we explained, they will definitely be addressed at a later date, but the later date for the fall 2 high-risk sports will be within a couple weeks. Kristen Dyaroff, can you comment, and this is outside of athletics, but it did come in on our reopening plan, Dr. Sheboy, so I'd like to see if somebody can answer this, either you or our fantastic FMES principal, who's sitting here with her beautiful son. Can you comment about the pre-K program plan for 2021-2022? Parents need to know if it will be in session and how many days. If it won't be in session, can you comment on the money budgeted for that program for this year or next year? Is that a grant? Is it tax dollars? Since that program wasn't one last year, what happened to the money in the budget that was allotted for that program? And while I know we already answered that at previous boards, I'm going to let you guys answer it. I won't do it.
Yeah, so just in regards to next year, our goal as of February 4th, 2021, is to have our pre-K back. We value that program. We recognize its role as an early development program, and that is our goal. To give certainty to anybody, I can't give certainty about what's happening on September 1st without knowing whether or not there's going to be a change from the Department of Health in regards to all the requirements that schools have to abide by. That's that piece. In regards to our program, we've said at many board meetings over the past few years that our pre-K program is 100% taxpayer funded. It is not a UPK program. We lost UPK when the program was ended in 2010, and this is a taxpayer funded program. It has not been budgeted for as far as 21-22 because we haven't rolled out our budget for 21-22, but our plan is to start with that as an item in our budget. As far as 2021, this school year that we are in, we did not reduce expenses for that program because we kept those teachers to have smaller class sizes at the Fort Montgomery Elementary School. I apologize for my dogs. We've also used all those aids to allow for enhanced social distancing. Again, cutting pre-kindergarten was a very difficult decision for the district. And as soon as we have a definitive answer to that question, as far as 21-22, we will let the community know. People should make sure that they stay tuned to future meetings as we're talking about our program, as well as the budget development process, which will begin next month.
Thank you. Thank you for that. The next comment is from Carlise Lemlier, our PTSC president, asking about fall cheer. I believe we said that the fall cheer, we were going to discuss that in the fall sports when we decide about fall sports, is whether fall cheer will take place, and that will be in the next couple weeks. Spectators, Carlise, we already answered the questions about the spectators. One question that she asked, will there be 2 spectators allowed at each outdoor event, which would be more of a spring question, fall and spring question.
At this time, Section 9 has not approved spectators at all. They are going to revisit it probably for the fall season. But at this time, there are no spectators for any sport.
Thank you. And again, I want the community to understand this is constantly changing. We were on the phone with our attorney the other night, and while we were on the phone with her, she was getting more and more updates as they were coming in. The next question is, and this is something that Mrs. Crow already touched on, but I do want to talk about it. How about video footage being displayed for when spectators are not allowed? We know that the PTSC funded Huddle, and Coach Crow is seeking some cameras to be installed for video footage that can be on Huddle. Can those cameras be installed and fast-tracked in advance of the winter sports competitions? I'm not sure we're going to be able to pull that off in the next month, but we'll work to get it done as soon as possible. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Is testing required for student athletes or is it optional? Dr. Sheboy responded to
So
that
testing-
already.
And it's required for high risk sports.
Okay, thank you. The next one is how often will the student athletes get tested? Dr. Sheboy, you answered that already. Carly is very happy with our testing procedure, but she does have a question. Are other school districts doing daily testing of athletes?
My understanding is that we have the most rigorous testing plan of any school district that is currently working with Horizon. I can't speak to districts that are not working with Horizon, but that we are rigorous and aggressive with our testing protocols.
Okay. Can you please touch on how contact tracing will work for sports?
Yes, maybe. It'll actually work the same as it does for any of our activities. You know, if we have a positive on a bus, all those individuals will be quarantined, and then we would do, presuming that child was in school that day, we would have to go back and do contact tracing, pull our course logs, pull our class rosters, and like I said, testing will ultimately, I anticipate, result in some positives. It is the downside of testing more. However, I don't know that I would not be recommending the board approve high-risk sports if I didn't have a testing protocol in plan. So we have been doing contact tracing for the Department of Health since November. We follow the same protocols that they have established, and we'll continue to do that. And if those protocols change, which we actually hope that they do, because we believe that they are unnecessarily quarantining and isolating far too many students, faculty, and staff, as opposed to close contact that anybody in a congregate setting. That is not just my opinion, that's the opinion of all of the Orange County superintendents. And but if that protocol changes, then we will adapt to the new protocol, but that's where we are right now.
Thank you. When is the decision for fall high-risk sports? As I said, probably within the next 2 to 4 weeks, because we have to have a decision because it starts very close.
As well as
our board members reminded us of that.
Yeah, we do have a board meeting on the 25th of February, and that would probably be the logical one to make that decision.
Thank you. Dr. Sheboy, Mrs. Crow, can you confirm that high-risk fall and spring sports have not yet been approved by the state?
High-risk sports?
Yeah.
No, I believe everything has been approved by the state.
Okay.
But it goes back to the individual districts. Okay, the state approves it, but individual districts can choose what they would like to do.
Okay, thank you. The next one is a comment. Jesse Duval, I want my kids in school now. I want my kids playing all sports now. Enough is enough. Open the schools full time. And believe me, we want that too. We want that too. And our district is breaking their necks to get it. That's just my comment. Dr. Sheboy, would you like to add to that?
Yes, first off, thank you for that comment. I will echo it. And I think that anybody who wishes to express those concerns to the New York State Department of Health is certainly welcome to do that. I know that we are advocating for the ability to bring our kids back safely. We know that our schools are safer than our communities at large. And please feel free to advocate. Dr. Howard Zucker is the Commissioner of Health for New York State, so feel free to send Dr. Zucker an email at your convenience.
Thank you. Brian Larkin, if contest or practice is on a Saturday, will there be testing on the Saturdays?
No, we will be doing testing on Monday through Friday.
Thank you. But we will need to have practices on Saturdays and Sundays in order to meet the required practices in order to participate, correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
You're both shaking your head. I just
Yes,
want to make
that's
sure
correct.
everyone understands that.
Yeah, the state has actually waived the 7-day practice policy, so you're going to have to practice on Sunday.
Mhm. Okay, so the next one is from Kristen Dyaroff. If you can return to high-risk sports with medical clearance and informed consent, then why can't you allow our kids to return to 5 full days of school with medical clearance and informed consent? Do you realize allowing kids to play high-risk sports makes no sense if you aren't allowing our kids back to low-risk class attendance? Dr. Sheboy had mentioned that schools are safer than the community. I want to know exactly what state regulations are stopping our return to full 5 days of school. And I believe that you had already done that at future meetings, but do you have access to this document, Dr. Sheboy, so you can see what I'm reading, or?
I don't really see what
You
you're
want me to
reading.
read it again?
Is this from the email, Ann?
It's number 12 on the Google Doc, but it is from an email. I can read it again too, but basically she's asking if we're allowing kids, or if we're going to propose to allow kids. There you go. You have it, right? That's it.
Yeah, so again, this goes back to, these are not our requirements, Ms. Dyaroff. This is New York State and Orange County's requirements for social distancing. We do not have the space to bring our kids back 5 days a week in any of our levels, although we are certainly looking at ways of bringing a larger number back 4 days in the very near future. I absolutely agree that we need our kids back. We do. Again, I would ask anybody who wishes to, to discuss, New York State Department of Health regulations, to please address those with the New York State Department of Health.
Thank you. The other comments are on our budget and our bus contracts. Our budget, we already discussed that we will be working on our budget for the next, we usually start around now, and we'll be having budget meetings starting the month of March. I think it's almost every Thursday that we will be discussing our budget and our state aid and our funding and our expenses. And the next one is our bus contracts. We don't normally discuss our contracts themselves, but we do talk about the cost of transportation. We have a presentation on transportation costs during our budget cycle. We definitely had a bus contract in place for our 2021 sports. Did we save busing money by not having fall sports? As it pertains to sports, we saved money, but we're having a fall season. We're just potentially we're going to have it a little later. So I don't know if Denise or Dr. Sheboy want to add additional comments on that.
Well, a shortened season did enable us to save some money on transportation, on security, and all those things. I would say that it's not going to bridge the gap that the state is putting us in for 21-22. But we certainly did. We saved a little bit of security, timekeepers, transportation. Hopefully we'll get full seasons in, and we'll spend some of that money again. So
yes. I already answered Mr. Dyaroff's question. And then Kristen Dyaroff asked another question. If you are allowing high-risk sports for the mental well-being of students, what are you doing for the mental health and isolation of our younger grades? And again, I think we've talked about that at past board meetings, but if you want to touch on that again.
Well, we've talked about that as far as some of the programs in the schools, but again, I'm just going to reiterate to the school community who's on, we're working on plans. I have tasked the principals with putting together plans to bring our some of our higher risk students, which includes our youngest learners, back to 4 days. And my goal is to get those students back sooner rather than later. And again, we've addressed, the social and emotional learning piece in our town halls, and anybody is welcome certainly to go back to our website and review some of those things, or to email the principal if they have a specific concern about their child.
Yes, thank you. Carlise added another question. Carlise Lemire, it's a good question. Not that they're not all good, but this I think is important for Mrs. Crow. And I believe we still have our high school principal on, our assistant principal. We do, that could answer this. And is it true that you will be changing the academic standards required to play? Basically, the ineligibility standards for what normally would have prevented students from playing for having certain D or F grades, is that being amended due to the shorter season?
Yes, it is. Debbie Brand put together some requirements that our academically ineligible students will have to abide by, and it will go on a weekly basis. And the coaches are going to work with their athletes as well as our teachers. And the athletes know what they have to do, and it's up to them now to, so to speak, put up or shut up.
So,
And if I can
Sorry,
add
be
to that,
frank.
it's not just the shortened season, it's the later season. Because typically winter sports begin the end of the first week of the second marking period. We are now
Usually around November 10th, around November
Right.
10th.
Yep. We are now at the end of the first week of the first semester. So entering the third marking period. We've had students who have not had the, sometimes I would say the motivation to do as they should have done, and didn't necessarily see the even potential for this. And our goal is to try to reignite some of that motivation that maybe some of them have lost. And that's why Ms. Brand and Ms. Crow and their teams really wanted to look at this. It's not a board policy. It is, in as much as it is a building protocol, building practice, but it is something that we did discuss at length. So.
And I also believe that the supports.
Ned Cope, when you get an opportunity next day or two, would you please send me those relaxed standards?
Yes, sir.
can you please send them to the entire
Right.
board, Debbie? And the other question I have that isn't part of this question, I want to be 100% clear on it. Will those, I'm assuming they'll be part of the code of conduct and be clear and clearly understood by the players before they sign their commitment forms?
For example, my team will sit and watch. Debbie Brand made a video, and she
Okay.
a PowerPoint presentation, which is about 8 minutes long, and our teams will sit and watch that.
All
And
teams? All
I
teams?
will the higher risk sports at this point. I don't know. I mean, I can send that. Obviously, the track team can watch it, but really,
And the ski team?
and ski team. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I just
I
want to
wanna
make
make
sure
sure
it gets out to everybody.
All the teams have access to the same standards, and yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. And then one comment that Carlise made is she just heard my Ann Lawless discuss the concern about the kids competing against others, but isn't it still a personal choice for the parents and children to make the decision on whether they or not they are interested in taking the risk? No sports are mandatory, correct? And that is 100% true statement. It's up to the parents and the students. Chris Walsh asked, why was modified basketball not allowed to have workout or tryouts while varsity basketball was having workouts already? I believe it's because we didn't have a coach appointed yet, but Mrs. Crow, I'm going to let you touch on that one.
If Mr. Grant wanted to have workouts, he could have.
Okay.
I could not find a coach for girls modified basketball.
Correct.
Coach Grant was willing to do both, but due to the extremely short season and the midwinter break, it just really wasn't feasible. And he could still have some workouts if he wants to, and I will share that with him.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie McCoy. Please consider that you are not just making a decision for this year. In many cases, you are making a decision about whether or not a kid can get to college and play a sport. Making the decision to not allow this winter season, you are essentially ensuring that some kids cannot play in college. This is a huge problem for me. Many kids only care about school if they can play a sport. Please remember, this is not just a decision for a year. It can derail so many plans and dreams of our kids, which can negatively affect their mental health. So I think a lot of that was taken into consideration already in the proposition that our administrators have brought forward to you as to the board as to what they feel is the best way to handle high-risk winter sports. I think that's Holly West. These questions are referring to sports decisions and reopening decisions. What is your source of data you are using to make the decisions? Can you please share the metrics and decision criteria you are using to make the decisions? And if we have to relax the academic standards, are you also considering bringing those students to school full time? It seems like that would be the motivation they need. I think we've already touched on bringing the kids back full time. That's what we all want to do. Especially kids that are struggling at home. I don't know how many times, we've said that over and over again. That is our goal. That's what we're focusing on. Dr. Sheboy and the administration are working diligently to try to get our young learners and our students at risk and the students that need the extra help into the building more than just the 2 days a week that they're there. I don't know if Dr. Sheboy or Mrs. Crow want to add to any of that.
No, I just want to address the one part, or I guess multiple parts about data and what are we using to inform our decision. I think Ms. West knows very clearly that positivity rate in the region is decreasing. In addition, when we did our testing, our surveillance testing at the Highland Falls Intermediate School, it was far lower than that of the community at that time. In addition, New York State is allowing this. New York Orange County Department of Health is allowing this. And if we believe that we can put these protocols in place, given the low positivity rate that we have, and still with our rigorous testing program, we're going to do it. So.
Okay. Petra Alberici, someone mentioned, and it was me, Ann Lawless, voting against having high-risk sports being available because the kids could bring home COVID to parents and grandparents. I want to add to that I also said to the people that work in our schools, as well as coaches, and then their families, New York State just opened the vaccines to age 65 and over, and the majority of elderly and high-risk people have already received their vaccines. Shouldn't this help with the scenario of fear for parents and grandparents? I'm just wondering if the vaccine readiness can play a part in your decision. And I want to say that it played a part in my thoughts on this. There is very many seniors. I watch the Orange County executives update every day. There are still many, many seniors that are having difficulty finding the vaccine to get it. There is many high-risk people that aren't even allowed to get the vaccine yet. They're still on 1A and 1B. So there's many seniors, there's many nursing homes that are still just hurting so to get the vaccines. We're working. There's teachers that are trying every day. And I tell you, there are teachers in our district that have driven over an hour many of them over an hour to find a place to get a vaccine. And then they need to have to go back the next, a month later to that same location, whether it be in Kingston, Albany. I know some teachers have actually driven to Albany to get it, New York City. So there are a lot of people where the vaccine just isn't available yet. So, and I think
I would say that the majority of persons who are seeking and who are eligible by age and other have not been able to get it. Orange County is remiss as the state is.
And our bus drivers as well have had a heck of a time trying to find available places to go to get the vaccine. I know that the Orange County Executive and the state and our Orange County Department of Health are working hard and closely with the federal government and the state government to get more vaccines into the area. I think it was on a good roll in the beginning, and it's come to a close to a complete halt. He spoke last night about having only 200 vaccines for a certain pod they were setting up today for this week. In the town of Newburgh. That's not going to touch anything. So they're working like mad to get it, but the numbers are not where they need to be. So I believe that vaccine readiness was considered, and that's why we're putting in so many protocols that we're putting in, these safety protocols. Carly thanks the district, referring to the academic standards. That's allowing people, amending so that athletes have a chance to play. And I think that is a very important step in this, and it'll give them the incentive, hopefully, that they need, or that little push to just keep on going. So, Dr. Theodore, did any other questions come in that I don't have?
No, those are all of the questions. That's the end.
Okay. So I think these were all great questions. I hope we answered them to your liking, or to the best that we can right now. Now I would like to move on to if any board members. Now, Dr. Sheboy, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do that particular action item? We're going to do that separately.
Yes,
correct?
It's not part of the consent agenda. That's correct.
Okay, so would board members like the option to speak now, or would they like to when I do a roll call for their vote? Is it doing a roll call for their vote give them the ability to put? Go ahead, Aaron.
Now, thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
First, thank you, Dr. Sheboy, Ms. Brand, Ms. Crow, for the excellent presentation. Safety has always been a top priority, no doubt, and I appreciate everything that everyone has done to keep our students and faculty safe. We spent the better part of the last year erring on the side of caution in regards to reopening, and we did a great job with getting our doors back open. Again, every decision wasn't popular, but I was a part of every one of those decisions, and I if I had to make them again, I absolutely would. I feel like right now we're at a point where we have to be weighing the safety risk of the virus versus the social and emotional needs of our kids. This is a real issue for me, and I've been very vocal about that. Our kids have been dormant in front of computer screens for 10 months, and I think we could all see the toll that it's taken on a lot of them. The big question, though, is can we do sports safely? I think we can. I think we've proven that our protocols and procedures, when done right, have been very effective. It's going to be more work to make it happen, probably, but I think the kids deserve it. The kids have done everything we've asked of them since last March. It wasn't easy, but they did it. Now they're asking us for some help, and I think we have an obligation to those players who want the opportunity to play, to give them the chance to do that. Teams from around the state, outside of the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, and around the country have been playing for months without much incident. So if it can work in other places, why can't it work here? And why shouldn't we give them the chance to do that before we just shut it down? Another issue for a lot of kids is recruiting. Our athletes are falling behind and getting left out of recruiting classes if they haven't been already. It might seem like a non-issue for a lot of people, but some of these kids are depending on scholarships to get through college, and without them, they might be missing out on a chance to get a college education. I keep hearing the word normal getting thrown around, and how getting back to normal is important. I'm going to challenge that. I don't think we're ever going to be back to normal. I think we've learned in the last 10 months that our normal in March 2020 is never going to be our normal again. But 2020's biggest lesson is to think outside the box and to get things done in non-traditional ways. We've asked that of our students, our teachers, our parents, and our community. And now I think it's our turn. That being said, I do support this motion to allow high-risk sports. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So can I go ahead then and read the resolution and then do a roll call? That's a yes. So I'm going to go for it. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board hereby approves student participation in the following higher risk winter sports, subject to parents, legal guardians, and students signing of the code of conduct and informed consent form in the presence of school officials and strict adherence to the guidelines and protocols established by state and local health authorities, as well as the rules of Section 9 of the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. Varsity boys basketball, varsity girls basketball, varsity cheerleading. And be it further resolved that the board hereby directs the superintendent to arrange for COVID-19 testing of student athletes and coaches as a condition of participation in the above referenced sports. May I please get a motion?
Motion.
May I please get a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, I'm going to do a roll call. I'll start at the top. Ned?
I vote against the resolution based on the real risk of serious health consequences and death to not only the students, but the persons to whom they come in contact with. This has been confirmed by health experts throughout the country, almost without exception, credible by credible medical personnel. I vote no.
Okay, thank you. Aaron?
Yes.
Faith?
I vote 100% yes, in full support of our district, of our students, of our communities, and of our families, and our personal choice to choose whether or not we're going to have our children engage in the sport of their choice. Yes.
Thank you. James?
Yes.
Thank you. Gus? Gus? I'm sorry, you're on mute. Can someone? Yes? Okay. Gabe?
What I'd like to start out saying is that I believe when we start with the state level and the local level about very important to distinguish between, I don't know what words they use exactly, but they're not approving high school sports, they're allowing them to be played. Big difference between the two. In fact, if you read the health commissioner for the counties, I would say they more don't recommend them to happen. That being said, I'm a big proponent of athletics and the importance of athletics. What I want to make sure that everyone understands is all the stakeholders that are involved in, if we decide to allow athletics to happen, the importance of those stakeholders, the parents, the students, student athletes, the coaches, the officials, everyone that's going to be involved, that they follow all the local and state and federal health guidelines to minimize the COVID risk that we transmit it and get it. Because if it's not taken seriously, somebody had said that it's an individual decision to play, to choose. Yes, it is. But by making poor decisions, you're now affecting the entire school, and academics, top priority, number one priority in school. By making poor decisions, you as an athlete, now increasing our risk. To what extent we were trying to minimize that, but by doing that, you're putting academics at risk in terms of, yes, we all want to move forward with more time face-to-face in school, and we're putting that at risk. So I just want everyone to understand the importance of that. Everyone that's involved in this decision, I do vote yes.
Thank you, Gabe. Colonel Morrison?
Yes.
Thank you. So again, I want to officially register my vote as a no, but I want to register it because of not my concerns with what we're going to be doing internally. I'm so impressed by it, and I will say my prayers every night that it works. I will keep an open mind when we have a discussion about our fall and our spring sports, and I look forward to those discussions. But along the same lines as Gabe is saying, Mrs. Crow, I really hope that you're able to reach out to these other districts and make sure that they're going to make their schools safe for us to bring our students in there. And I hope that, and I respectfully ask that if you do see something, as I know you will, and please ask your other coaches to do the same, that doesn't look right or doesn't feel right in one of those other schools, or no masks or spectators, please notify the appropriate people as soon as possible and make sure our students are kept safe.
I will do that.
And I know there's other districts having meetings as we speak, and several of them are having emergency meetings tomorrow. When you find out what districts that we're scheduled to be in competition with that will not be having sports, can you let us know? That will not be having high-risk sports. So I'm sure you'll try to, make the appropriate changes so we do have a decent number of games. Right now, for the high-risk sports, for basketball, girls and boys, it's 10 games.
Hopefully.
Okay. So yes, can you let the board know when you do find out from how the other districts are going with their votes tonight and tomorrow night?
And many of the districts have also eliminated modified sports and JV sports.
Okay,
Sports.
that's
This
good
winter.
to know, to put
This
that out
winter.
there for the community. Yes. So, all right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. So now we can go on to the consent agenda. Denise, Ms. Sideri, do you want me to do it?
No, I'll take over. You've been talking a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda as submitted by the Superintendent of Schools,
Motion.
number 2 to 22.
I asked that number 10.
Hold on, Ned, we need a second. Ned, wait a minute. I have a motion. Faith is second. Okay, you have a question on number 10? I believe
asked
you wanted to.
I have questions, and I asked that number 10 be voted
on separately?
on separate from the other number. Correct.
Okay, first I'd like, so Marissa, should I get the answers to the questions first, or should I pull number 10 first and get the vote on the
Just
rest
pull
of
number
them,
10
and
and
then
do
go
it
back?
separate, and then we can go back. Do number
Okay.
10 separate, and then we'll go back.
Okay, thank you. So it's going to be
Okay.
2 through 11 and 13 through 22.
No, 2 through 9, 2 through 9, and
2 through
11.
9. Oh, Whispering Pines is 10. I'm sorry, 2 through 9 and 11 through 22.
22.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then let's go back to number 10. I know that Denise sent us out a detailed breakdown of all of the change orders on number 10. Before you ask your specific questions, Ned, I want to remind the board that at the end of any big capital project, we're tying out and closing out loose ends, and that's so always at the end of a project, you have Whispering Pines, you'll have change orders. So I just want to make sure that the community and everyone on the board understands that this isn't unusual to have this many. Also, Denise, can you let us know how many were ours and how many were theirs?
Hold on, I'm getting there. I just gotta get to the resolution.
Okay.
So there were, out of the 9 change orders,
Mhm.
there were 7 for discovered conditions. That was from the construction manager, and 2 of them
Yes.
were district requested.
So we changed 2 things that required 2 of them, and the other were conditions that weren't accounted for during the design. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Correct.
Go ahead, Mr. Coppola, with your questions.
What were the 2 that we, Denise?
Hold on. I have to go through and look at them.
That was in the email, but I'm
It wasn't in my email. I do my best to prepare. You don't need to make that comment.
I wasn't inferring that, Ned, at all. I was saying that we could go to the email quicker if that was quicker. I wasn't
No, I
inferring
have to actually
to your homework. Go ahead.
I have to look at the change orders because I wasn't expecting that type of a question, and I'm sorry.
Let's go down them one by
Denise,
one.
was it the guardrails for out by the fencing, as well as the access to the bridge, the temporary access to the bridge?
I think
Those
that's
are
correct.
Those are what we needed.
Those are the 2 new ones, Frank?
Those are the
Frank,
2 that we
those-
requested. Yes, because we needed,
Okay.
yep. We needed to
Thank
put a temporary fix over the bridge because it was redesigned. They don't want to pave on that because of the rebar. So they have to put a temporary fix so we have egress from the gymnasium. So that's the one there. And then I believe that the other one that we have asked for was the guardrails by the administrative exit, because that technically you don't need them because it's not too high of a drop off, but we want to make sure that we're safe and that everybody using those stairwells by the admin entrance and exit. So those 2 we definitely asked for.
Thank you.
Do you have any
And-
other questions?
Yeah, the other 7 were for discovered items?
So again, some of them were for example, number 10, 5-10, Ned, was for them to cast in place light pole bases. We had purchased light pole bases, but they could not actually drill in some areas down deep enough to put the light pole bases. So what they did is they built a frame around, they cast in place and pinned it to the bedrock there for some of those because they just literally could not drill down deep enough without actually tearing out so much more area. So that was one of them. Additional trees and rock removal to create a safer area on the south side of the west field, or the Debbie Crow field. If you look at where the senior rock still is, right? It's still there. We made sure they kept that. They had to cut in. When they cut in that area, it created a little bit of a rock ledge that we did not want to have there and have a risk of a tree or a boulder coming down and A, hurting a child, or B, actually damaging the asset, the field. So that's another one. In addition, because of the delays, there's a change order for a winter mix on the concrete. Dave can speak to those much better than I can, but a winter mix on concrete does have an increased cost because it's just a different mix. So that is one of those. The transformer pad to provide the power out there by the West Field. It sits right underneath the Debbie Crow scoreboard. That was another one there. So those are the nature of these. Oh, and the shutoff valve that's in behind the building. That was an area that we could isolate. Prior to that, we had no ability to isolate the high school itself from the water system. And we all know from our recent water issue, we've now put in 2 valves right along 9W. But prior to that, the shutoff was the meter box. So we put that in there, and that actually, when we had the water issue in September, we were able to ascertain that we weren't actually losing water in the building, because that would have caused us all sorts of concerns. So those are the nature of those change orders, Ned.
And we had a discussion on that when the water issue happened. I think that's a great idea and a very proactive change order. And I'm glad they were able to do it. Yeah.
Very important.
Very important.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions on number 10? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Any last comments before we go into executive session? I want to thank everybody for their participation tonight and for sticking it out with all the questions that we had. And I thank everyone again for their hard work that they've done on getting our children safe and making sure we stay safe.
Yeah.
So be it resolved that the Board of Education recesses into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular individual. The board will not be returning to open session to take action. And I believe this should be a very short executive session, just so everybody knows.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Stay well. Stefan, let us know when